Welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. Today we have with us Amy Budd. Now, she is the CEO of Whole Heart Ranch. She's a longtime horsewoman with a love and passion for horses and riding, and she wants to share the love and leadership that they provide. Let's see. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I'm excited to be here today with you.
As I am to have you as well. Now, I love what you do. I have personal knowledge and experience of what you do with horses and how it helps us to become so resilient. I had the pleasure of meeting all four of the horses. My favorite, of course, is Maddie. Can you share a little bit of your journey, how you got to horses? Because I know this isn't your first career.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And a journey is an accurate description. It's kind of been a long time coming. And so I've been a long time horsewoman. I got my first horse when I was 12. So I've always had that love and passion. And yes, have been called many times back to the horses during my, I like to call it a portfolio career. So I originally wanted to go to veterinary school and decided I better work in a clinic try that on before I opt in and spend 4 more years going to vet school,
Wow.
which was a blessing. It absolutely cured me. I am not wired for that. I ended up just taking home and adopting probably more animals than I cared to admit or acknowledge. So at that point, I was married and we were following my husband's career. We made a move and I investigated going back to the horses and looked at getting a master's degree in reproductive physiology. I'm 5'2". I was accepted to the program, but looking at the, rear view of a horse when you're 5'2", that's not great for the long term. And so opted out of the horses at that point, went back to work in a veterinary clinic. The short version of this very long story was I was a wrong number. So I was called by a, believe it or not, Mary Kay beauty consultant. And I politely declined. I said, I don't wear makeup and, thank you. And God love her, she was persistent. And so she offered a free manicure, to which I said yes, because I had horses. And my nails are always a wreck because I spend a lot of time, obviously, in the barn. And so she came and was doing the manicure and telling me about the Mary Kay career opportunity. And I was not truthfully what they were looking for. I was in my 20s and they were looking for the kind of mid 30 to 40-year-old woman who'd hit the corporate glass ceiling at that point, the 80s.
Right.
And so women were experiencing, and it's so fascinating that we're still in a lot of this same cycle with corporate women experiencing burnout, hitting glass ceilings, all of the things. So I said yes to Mary Kay and started that whole journey. And it was fascinating. I earned the use of 2 career cars. I mean, I was on a
you had the pink Cadillac.
Pretty fast upward trajectory. I didn't take the Cadillac because I had my horses. And so I opted in. You didn't have to take the car. You could take the cash. And so I bought a big diesel truck. So, there I am in my spiked pink high heels and my pink director suit and my big diesel truck. So anyway, did that for a lot of years, had horses.
Right.
And then, of course, my life changed. I got divorced. I had 2 kids. I had my horses, all of these things. And it's fascinating how, and I just got to be part of a book anthology called Heart Whispers. When we can stop long enough to listen to our own innate wisdom, how many doors open for us.
Wow.
And so I had an opportunity to buy a pet food delivery business and I took it. I was teaching horseback riding at the time. And so was kind of doing both things. But my kids got to a point where I needed to be available for them. I needed to be a mom.
Right.
And so I kind of embraced this pet food delivery business. I started my bakery. I ended up with a 25-year run in the pet food industry with my own company. Loved it. And I got to a point again of just, I felt like I was done and I wasn't sure what was next.
Right.
And I was searching and I knew about horses being used in therapeutic settings. And then I started looking further and found 2 different programs. And I ended up choosing one that was a 2-year program that is really now maximizing and using the horses emotional intelligent
Mm,
for, again, developing not only our own personal resilience, but then I want to kind of up level and take it to the next level and really help corporations and businesses start to adopt a herd mentality.
mm,
I think we're at a really fascinating juncture in our history. We're
right.
watching in real time all of our systems breaking down. Our
Wow.
governance system is breaking down. Our education systems are breaking down. We're more divided as a nation than we've ever been.
Yes.
It's a long list. Our financial systems are breaking down. And I think we're at a point in time where we have got to, as humans, take a hard look at where we're going. And
Mhm,
horses, it's fascinating. Horses have had shared leadership.
mm,
They were doing DEI, well, now I B, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, long
mhm.
before that was ever a thing.
Wow.
I have a standing joke, I have a black one, a brown one, a red one, and a tan one,
You
and
do.
they all get along. And it's
You
like, if we could take a page from the horse's book
Right,
and start incorporating that, my God, what a different world we'd have.
right. Now, one of the you said a lot of very interesting things,
Right?
and
That was a mouthful. Sorry.
it was.
You just tell me, Amy, pause, hit pause.
So one of the things I wanna hone in on is you talked about having a herd mentality, and I think when people initially hear that, because I've been through your training, and so I know what you mean by that, but I believe that when people initially hear that, they believe that this is like group think and you're just followers, you don't have any individuality, and
Yeah.
why would my corporation want that?
Yeah,
So
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. What a great, truly like conversation that we need to have about that. So I appreciate that. So really for me, thinking about the herd mentality is being able to unlock potential at scale.
mm,
And so right now, especially when you look at leaders, I think there's a lot of stigma. It's just like, you can even speak to this even around the military world, right? There still is a real stigma of asking for help. And so we
absolutely.
figure like we have to either go it alone. We've got to figure out the answer to whatever these problems are on our own
Right.
and think of what's possible. My son and I, he's 30, we have this conversation frequently. He works in the construction world. And oftentimes, and I think this is true in corporate America, I know it's true oftentimes in the military. I've got a military parent as well. Um, we're not always asking the right questions, and we're not
Right,
always going to the people that could really solve the problem.
right,
So my son is down in the not lower level, but he's the entry level in the construction world.
right.
And he had a visit from one of the big, his company does a lot of work for Microsoft. And so the Microsoft heads came to the facility and they were having this conversation. And they said, well, you're not following the policy, all of the safety protocols. And so my son said, you know what? Two things need to happen today. One, I want to actually show you what you're asking me to do. I want to show you what my job is, and I'm going to teach you how to do my job today. And I,
Wow.
I know, I was just like, dude, you said this? He's like, yeah. I said, okay, how'd that go? And he said, it was probably the best thing that ever happened because he didn't actually know what he was physically asking us to do on the
Mhm,
job. And he said one of the things they require is for these guys to wear gloves
mhm,
and they're wiring fiber and so both electrical wiring and internet fiber. So having gloves on when you are physically doing that task takes 10 times longer to get the job done. And there's no electrical charge going at this point. Nothing's turned on, nothing's turned up. So he
okay,
said, why are you requiring us to wear gloves for a job that there's no risk of danger?
okay.
So he asked a question and the guy was like, holy cow, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. And he said, this is so hard to do. But how often does this happen?
Right,
We're not asking questions, we're dictating policy, and we're not really activating the brain, the heart intelligence, all of the knowledge within our own organizations.
Right.
So
And
it's not the group think. So thank you again for bringing that up, because I think you're right. There is a lot of I guess, perception around what that means.
right, because why would I want to adopt that? I'm trying to stand out in the world as an
Right.
organization. And essentially, it sounds like what you're saying is that they run together faster when it's a
Exactly.
coordinated effort.
Right. And look at nature. Look at birds fly. Look at
Mhm.
a flock of birds fly, right? There is almost this subtle dance. When you get to
There.
watch horses run, it's the same thing. It's like there's an unspoken communication. And we have unspoken communication as well as humans. We're just not taught that. And so for
Yes.
me, that's where the heart math piece of my puzzle. So I'm also a heart math trainer. And
Mhm.
that's where heart math comes into the equation. It is emotional intelligence on steroids. And so
Right.
it's the ability to learn again as a leader. You always hear great leaders know how to read the room.
Mhm.
Really great leaders know how to impact the room, and they know how to
Oh,
change the dynamic, right, for the better.
I love that. And now we're going to pause for a commercial break.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Amy Budd, the CEO of Whole Heart Ranch, as we are about to delve into heart math. So, you were sharing what heart math is and how it helps leaders and organizations to be able to share.
Yeah, so heart math is really fascinating. And again, culturally, we are not taught emotional intelligence, right? As a society, we're quite honestly taught to stuff our emotions.
Mhm.
It's not okay to have a bad day. It's not okay to be angry. And emotions are just our our body's innate way of communicating with us. And
Right.
so,
And I think it's so interesting that uh, the interesting dynamic between heart math and burnout is so many times people are stuffing their emotions and not speaking up about the injustices, the frustration,
exactly.
the poor boundaries, the things going on at work, and leaders aren't noticing it. So not only are they not speaking up, but they're not intelligent enough to determine like, hey, something seems off about my team,
Exactly.
something off about this person. But many times we don't even know our team well enough to know that.
Exactly. Oftentimes we don't know ourselves well enough.
Yes.
It's got to start with yourself first, right? So this
Mhm.
is the whole idea. You got to get your own oxygen mask on, right, before we can help others.
Absolutely.
And again, I think until we can start to begin to have some different conversations and ask some different questions, none of that's going to change. But
Mhm.
the interesting thing, and again, the Heart Math Institute's been around, gosh, 30 plus years now. They've got over, there are hundreds of white papers written documenting this. So it is real science. It's not just, wackadoodle.
Is that your official word,
That is my
wackadoodle?
official word, right? And a lot because again, we haven't talked about these things. We don't talk
Right.
in this way. But again, if you watch a good, quote, charismatic leader, this is innate in them. They
Mm.
understand people. They understand the emotional intelligence side of things. And so as humans, I can literally measure the brain activity around your brain at any given time. It puts off an electromagnetic energy field because it's generating electricity. So our
Right.
synapses are firing in our brain. I can measure that.
Right.
Our heart is doing the same thing. Every time that heart beats, it generates an electromagnetic impulse.
Right.
The magnetic impulse around the heart, though, radiates up to 3 feet. That's huge.
It is.
And there's more information going from the heart to the brain than the other way around. So the heart is really the driver of all of our physiology. What's feeding that electromagnetic impulse is our emotions,
Hmm.
not our intellect. So
Wow.
the emotions are reacting first. That's
Mhm.
what then drives the message to the brain that triggers the intellect.
Oh,
So when we are suppressing all of that,
mhm.
we are quite literally, we're doing two things. One, of course, as you just said, we are magnifying the physiological effects, which is what leads to burnout. That's stress, that's
Right,
anxiety. It can be low level depression. I mean, there's so many physiological factors.
right.
But then we are also quite literally, if we are in those high emotional states, it shuts off the brain. We are inhibiting our cortical function.
Right.
And
And
so,
then is that when you start operating off the amygdala and you're in fight, flight, or freeze?
exactly. And so you're not making good decisions. You are not operating at your best. And what's interesting, what the horses are actually picking up on is that electromagnetic field.
I was about to ask about that because I remember you sharing that the heart is very big in horses, and that because they are prey animals, their lives depend upon sensing what other people are
Others.
giving off, others and
Ex- ex-
animals and
exactly. So they are absolute emotional masters because yes,
mm,
their old wiring depends on being able to make a decision based on, you know, others and environment,
right,
right? We're no longer, we're not wired that way. We used to have to run from, maybe a saber-toothed tiger or a dinosaur or whatever. So
right,
our hardwiring is really to kind of the negative, if you will, that fear, right? So that has been what's driving our physiology for a long time.
right.
And part of what's, I think, this paradigm shift we're in, the Great Awakening, I mean, there's been so many greats here of late, the last couple of years with all of our,
Right.
it's hard to keep up.
What is it? Some millennials like, I'm tired of living in historical moments.
Yes, exactly. Right. It's like, oh my God, the gray hair, we can't keep up with, we can't color the stress away. But it's interesting, but it's no longer serving humanity.
Right.
And one of the beautiful things with heart math is one, learning to recognize your emotional state, but now you also have the ability to change it.
Right.
I can make a conscious choice to be in a more coherent state with some of the tools and techniques, which then brings the higher centers of my brain back online. Once I am in that space of true kind of emotional intelligence and really tapping into the innate wisdom in my own heart, it also offers an expansiveness. And we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but again, I think we're at kind of a critical mass with just the race dynamics that we're looking at right now, the human dynamic, period. We've got such disparity, it seems like, still with some of the women's issues. We've got disparity with living situations. I mean, it's just there's wide gaps in a whole lot of different places.
Right.
And one of the things I always like to share with people is just, all of this is just a wrapper.
Mm.
If I can start looking at, oh, sorry, we're going to get photo bombed here by the cat. If I can start looking at people from the sense of really what's inside,
Mhm.
again, different questions, that's a totally different perspective. We're going to have different outcomes. We're going to create different outcomes.
Right. And I think people often miss, and I'm glad that you bring this up, just in self-awareness, whether it's women of color, people of color, LGBTQ plus, people with differences in the workplace, it's so taxing on them emotionally and
Absolutely.
contributes heavily to burnout. And sometimes they're not even aware of the amount of stress that causes. And I would imagine that severely hinders their ability to even tap into emotional intelligence because they're in survival mode.
Absolutely. Yes. But again, recognizing, recognizing it, right, in self,
Right.
but then also knowing, and it takes practice, right? It takes dedicated practice to want to change, but then beginning to rewire. And so here's what's so cool to me with the heart math tools is when you are in that survival mode or you're in that prolonged period of stress or even depression,
Mm-hmm.
you're building a baseline. Our brains are absolute computers. They're machines and they don't
Right.
like change. And
Mm-hmm.
so you said it earlier with your amygdala. So the amygdala is constantly scanning the environment. Is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? And our brains want to maintain normal. They don't
Right.
want to change.
Right.
And so if you are in that place of survival mode, or you're in an environment where it's prolonged stress, prolonged, basically staying small,
Right.
unfortunately, that becomes normal.
Right.
And we start to begin to become immune to that.
Yes. And I love that you said staying small, because even when I think about times when I've been stressed, I've felt smaller. You shrink because you have to go into protective
Right.
mode, emotionally, physically, spiritually, because it's no longer safe.
Safe.
Right. But but now I've got to tap into you a little bit more. We're gonna
Uh-oh.
because my guess is that I could be wrong, but my guess is that you haven't always been so evolved and self-aware about what's going on. So I'm curious, have you ever had experiences where being in leadership roles and working that you've just fallen apart, you burned out, this wasn't the right fit for you?
Oh, Lord, sure. In life, in business, all of it. I'm human. Hello. Um, yeah, even, gosh, yes, I guess probably in not every single role, but sure, I've experienced burnout as, in the veterinary clinic. First off, that is
Mhm.
just so emotionally taxing, and I had no tools.
Right.
I love animals. I'm hardwired to love animals. I always have. I still have a ton of them, obviously.
Yes, you
Um,
do.
I'm that lady. Uh, so it was emotionally draining and wrenching to obviously it's a lot of death and dying.
Mm,
And so that was part of what my interest was in starting something new with Mary Kay, is I wanted a different career path because I didn't have the emotional capability to continue on. And,
right.
and like I say, I didn't have any tools, and people didn't talk about any of that. I can remember, even again, this was the 80s. We had a whole string of animals that came into the clinic at one point, and it's like, and it comes in waves
Mhm.
where, you're doing a lot of euthanasias. And I remember somebody finally coming in and saying, oh, well, we have a support group for people that have lost pets. And of course, at that point in time, a lot of other people kind of mocked that or made fun of that and thought, well, that's a
Mhm.
joke. It's just a dog or just a
Mhm.
cat, that you're
Right.
losing. But for some people, that's their whole family.
Right. It
So it's
truly
just
is.
fascinating how we have, from my perspective, we have begun to evolve and have some of those things.
Mhm.
My old thing was just, okay, well, not necessarily run away, but it was like, well, I can't do this anymore. So I changed my path.
Mm.
And so
And
that's not always effective.
right. And that's really interesting, because for some people it is changing directions and changing paths because they are not the dysfunctional ones. Sometimes there are toxic workplaces, toxic industries, and no matter what position you get in which company,
Right.
it's not going to get any better. And for those who aren't self-aware and they go to another company, they just take the same problems with
Yep. Yep,
them.
for sure. And so
So
I think, again, it's starting to ask, we've got to begin to ask some different questions.
Mm.
What are we doing in the workplace to really, and I know that there's some companies that have, oh gosh, the ERGs, so
Mhm.
the groups, right, for the
For their
different
employees.
topics, exactly, for their
Mhm.
employees, the employee resource groups, which is great. That's a great
Mhm.
starting point. But again, how do we start asking our leaders to look at a different puzzle piece and I think our leaders are stressed.
Right,
The
right,
business world is changing so fast, it's hard to keep up. And employees are now starting to demand, which is great on one level. They're
right,
demanding services. They're demanding, hey, I am not coping. I need work-life balance. I need a change.
right,
So we're just, the scales are, I think, kind of doing this until we can figure some of that out.
right. And I think they're going even one step further and saying, like, "I don't need you to care for 1 month and put on a big dog and pony show," since
Exactly, right?
that there
Right.
are all these flyers, and then it's no longer important until that particular group is spotlighted again. Like, they're
Yeah,
seeing through that facade.
we're seeing through a lot of facades right now. And I think on some level,
Mhm.
like I say, with the information age that we're in, you can't hide,
Right.
which is on many levels a good thing. On many levels, it's really stressful. We are being called into our integrity. And so when I teach art math, we do an exercise where you have a grid. And so you've got,
Mhm.
a grid. And so you've got the left side of the grid and the right side of the grid. Left side of the grid, we start to look at what we call depleting emotions.
Okay.
So emotions aren't good or bad. We need all of that, right? That's our body's innate wisdom of communicating with us. But when we start to look at the depleting emotions, anger, fear, frustration, depression,
Mhm.
anxiety, good Lord, we could probably, I try
Go
not
on and
to,
on.
exactly. I try not to go too far down those. And then we start to look at the renewing emotions:
Mhm.
peace, calm, serenity, joy,
Joy.
love, integrity, courage. So when you start looking at those, quote, heart qualities of integrity, courage, love, joy, peace, I think that's part of what is creating so much anxiety in our world right now. Is I think we are being called to look at those more important qualities.
Right. Right. And let's pause real quick for a commercial. We'll tap more into those qualities.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Amy Joy, and I'm the host of Get Your Shit Together Live with Amy Joy. And you can catch me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific on the amazing Trajectory channel right here on E360 TV.
Welcome back. So, where we left off, you were discussing those qualities that bring joy. And I really want to tap into those positive qualities. I want to tap into something that you do personally to ensure your resilience and that you've done that really helps you fight burnout, that someone in our audience can begin to adopt.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So of course I practice heart math daily.
Mhm.
And so my example that I use whenever I'm presenting this, teaching, whatever, is road rage.
Hmm.
I was a road
Okay.
rage. I was a road rage person. I will own that. Exactly.
Yeah, I've white knuckled it myself.
I think a lot of people do, right? Especially if you're having to commute on a daily basis, if you're in a
Mhm.
city environment. I'm not in the city anymore, but when I had
Right.
my pet food company, both of my contract facilities, I contracted with two different facilities to produce my food. And so I had to go to Denver fairly regularly.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of people, it's a lot of traffic, it's, all those things. And so I truly would just be physically exhausted after the day in Denver and the drive home. And I thought,
Okay.
my God, what is happening? Right. Well, then once I kind of, again, learned about the heart math stuff and some of that, I thought, okay, who am I hurting when I'm mad at the driver that cut me off?
Right.
Not the driver that cut me off. He could care less. I am
No.
only
Doesn't
hurting.
even know.
Doesn't even know. Right. Well, if I flash my lights, he knows, but anyway, I don't do that. People are crazy, right? And so
Right.
yeah, talk about trying to stay small, right? I stay small in traffic now just because like, I don't want to be mad because people are nuts.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but when you recognize that of like, oh my gosh, this is only hurting me. And so I
Mhm.
began to just do what's called heart-focused breathing.
Oh, okay. Let's learn about
And so
focused
it's
breathing.
the easiest thing. And it quite literally is like pressing a pause button on your physiology.
Okay.
So it stops almost everything from getting to a point of escalation. And it is the easiest thing. So we can do it right here, right now.
I'd love to.
Yes, I've been doing it. So it's all it is bring your awareness to your heart or chest area.
Okay.
Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than usual. And so, what do you feel as you just take a pause?
Well, this will probably sound a little weird, but it felt like air was whooshing around my heart,
Okay.
and it was radiating out. It was like dissipating, and everything was radiating out with the air whooshing and kind of bringing a calmness as it spins.
Perfect. And so, when you change your physiology,
Mhm.
right? So, if we can learn to press pause, and literally you are changing your physiology within seconds.
Right. So this doesn't require, because most of the time when we talk about taking deep breaths, doing mindful breathing, uh, taking a meditative moment, maybe 5, 10, people might take a long time to do it because that's usually the one of the main excuses, like I don't have
Time. Yep.
to do this. So are you saying that if someone could adopt this practice through heart math,
Yep. This
to
is
focus on,
eyes open in the moment.
wow. So
Because
you could be right at your desk.
I'm doing it right now. And it's really just a matter of, again, reframing, right? How we're doing things, how we think about things, right? If you're a first responder, so
Mhm.
the techniques are widely used. So our tier 1 military uses the technique, Stanford University, hospitals, right? If you are in the moment or you are starting to feel yourself escalate, as I did with road rage, I can just take that pause and just go, okay, let's do a little heart focused breathing. And then it begins to turn the volume down on my physiology and on my emotional state so that I never actually get to anger and rage.
Right, right. So
Then I'm actually
you
also,
harness it.
I'm making a conscious choice of, okay, getting angry at that driver doesn't really serve me.
No.
Because then I'm literally shutting off the better parts of my brain. I am limiting my cortical facilitation. Well, then I'm not going to make great choices when I'm driving 65 miles an hour on a 4-lane interstate, am I?
No.
But if I can
No.
take that pause, then I actually have a much better situational awareness. I'm really now very aware of all the drivers around me.
Absolutely.
and I'm not exhausted by the end of that commute or that drive or my work day.
Right.
And so
And
we all have that
right.
in the workplace. I mean, every single one of us, there's always going to be some coworker that you don't enjoy as much as another one. You may have a bad boss, but
Right.
you also have a conscious choice in how you choose to handle that.
Right. And when you said that, the image that came to my mind was moms as leaders, and we're in the car, and our children are watching our
Yes,
responses.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Because I've been confronted before by my child about like,
Same.
can you please not speed up to not let people. I'm one of those people.
You are
No, you're not letting me off.
Yes. Well, see, merging. I still need practice merging. I do not understand why people do not understand how to merge onto a highway, or if there's a sign 4 miles back that says 3-lane road ahead, merge. Yeah. Merging still gets me. I will totally own that. I'm working on it, but
And
same
if
thing.
you've
And
ever
I've
been in
been,
Southern California, trying to get on the freeway and merge onto that is like you're about to play double dutch. It's like, okay, go, take off, because if you don't, you're gonna be flat.
right. Or, rear-ended, or there's a multitude of, cascade of events that happen. But
Yes.
again, I think when we start to realize as humans, if this is just the wrapper and really the innate intelligence is deep within me, and this is my magnificence, and I harness that, and I actually have the ability to impact that, my gosh, I still have hope that we'll have a very different world.
Wow. Just that one simple practice, I really love that. Now,
And
you
all of the techniques, truly, all of the techniques are meant to be done in the moment, on the fly. So the quick coherence technique is just taking that heart-focused breathing and up-leveling it. It's learning how to choose then. One, I've turned my volume down. So I'm no longer escalating my physiology, just doing the heart-focused breathing. Now I can make a conscious choice. And it's not realistic if I'm in that state of like road rage where I'm angry or whatever. It's not realistic to go from anger to joy. But if I can go from anger to at least calm,
right.
or maybe a mild frustration, and
That's huge.
then begin to shift into at least a state of calm or ease, well,
Right.
then I'm bringing all my brain capacity back online. I've changed my physiology. I'm rewiring my brain so that
Right.
whatever those triggers are, I'm not going to keep playing the same old response tape.
Right.
I'm going to create a new response.
Right. And so instead of externalizing everything to these events that you can't control, you can take back some of that control, take back your mood, take back your desires for your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, your personal power.
So have you found that when you're teaching heart math and with the horses, that people are sometimes resistant to taking on the lessons? And when do you find that people are most resistant? Because it's not something that they are doing innately. I guess.
No,
It's a new way of
and
learning.
absolutely. And it's a different way, obviously, of just thinking about everything, right? So the fun thing I love is that I can measure this, and I can measure it in real time. So when I do, and especially if I do the heart math with the horses, so heart math can be taught independently on its own. I take the luxury of using my horses because their hearts are so big. Their hearts are
Right.
literally 5 times the size of ours. And they are naturally in a state of coherence because they're only assessing the emotional environment for information.
Mhm.
We have not learned how to just use emotions as information, right? Our brain is such that we store all that information.
Mhm.
So if
We make feelings become facts.
exactly. And we remember that. Our brain remembers that. And so then when we re-experience an old feeling, we already have a pre-programmed tape of how I should respond. And so
Mhm.
that's part of the problem is we've got some old tapes playing, right? That we need to change. But when I do this with the horses, I take a measurement. So I hook you up to the monitor. I look at what your coherence level is when we start. We'll
Mhm.
go through the day and practice, but then I also, towards the middle of the day, and then again at the end of the day, I partner you with the horse. So you are actually heart to heart
Right.
with the horse, and I've got you hooked to the monitor, and I can see how high your coherence goes because the horse's electromagnetic energy field is so big, and because
Mhm.
they're already naturally in that state of coherence, they help bring us into a higher state of coherence.
Right. And I can attest to that because I want to say that when I was with Maddie, I don't think I had felt that calm in a while. Like the way that I was brushing and painting on her, um, there was a different level of peace, a
Mhm.
different feeling of peace that I had not had before, other than that meditative piece. So that was
I
a
love that.
great surprise.
That's fascinating. Okay, because you had not shared that piece of the puzzle before when you were with her. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating, again, what they bring to the table, and how much, and just how generous their hearts are.
Mhm. And
So I love it that you got to physically feel that, but then also recognized, and again, that state is achievable on your own.
Mhm. Well, that's a good memory to have, to be able to tap into that even when there's difficulty, when you try to do it on your own, and you could experience that just once, the memory, then
Right.
you can create a new stream of information rather than the old streams that you have.
That's
I'm
what I
trying to
tell.
change from tapes.
Right, exactly. That's what I tell people. Channel Maddie, channel the horses, take them with you when you leave so that you can draw upon that strength.
Right. So
Or just
how
come visit me again.
so do you feel that this can even work for the stressed out mom who's a leader in her
Absolutely.
home, and she's got multiple children and laundry and demands and uh, installers and plumbers and everything going on, and she needs to just center?
And
Can
take a
she do
breath.
it
Oh,
too?
absolutely. I always say anybody with a heart. If you have a
Yeah.
heart, this works. It's that easy.
So they're not the Grinch. As we're
Right.
talking about her, I kept thinking about the Grinch's heart growing.
Ex-
Is he?
Yeah, there you go. You are so funny. Sometimes it's terrifying to have insight into your mind.
You don't want to get trapped in there are doors you should not open. Doors you absolutely should not open. Oh, we
Well,
have a visitor.
we have a visitor. This is Cleo.
Hello, Cleo. Is she psychic?
Apparently. Hi. Or she
Only
wants,
only the older generation knows what I'm talking about when I ask that question.
right?
Miss Cleo.
Hi, Cleo. Oh my God. Apparently, well, I think maybe she's campaigning for a snack.
Okay, it's just well, we're all almost done, Cleo. Don't worry about that.
She's like, I
So
want my mom back. That's
so
funny.
tell us about, I know you wanted to offer a the ultimate guide for leadership lessons from horses. Tell us what that's about. Because I know it's a
Ah,
free download.
It is a free download. And so one of the things it kind of walks you through 3 quick, easy steps that you can begin to adopt right away for yourself. Again, shifting perspective as far as how you function in the world as a leader. Um, one of the pain points is a little bit, about the ego. And so again, it's how do we move as leaders? How do we begin to move away from just thinking our way through things to really feeling our way through things and to activating that heart? And again, unlocking all the potential within both ourselves as well as our people in our organizations. Really, the cat is going to bite the microphone. We cannot make this stuff up, only on live streams, right? Oh my God.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, yeah, it's a fun download. And of course, it's got great pictures of the horses. So yes, you can access that. You can go to the website and then just scroll down a bit and it's right there on the homepage and click the button and have a fun download.
Beautiful. Now, do these leadership lessons even work with difficult people? Emotionally unintelligent?
That's a loaded question. Well, I think, again, sure, it works with anybody that's willing. And again, I think leaders are being called to change and to evolve and to grow personally. I think we're at that point in our history, in order to begin to change the big problems that we have facing us as a society. We've got to look within ourselves and we've got to start changing ourselves first in order to, again, unlock that potential to answer some of these big questions and big problems.
Right. And the reason that I ask that is I feel like sometimes when people hear or leaders hear the word heart or they hear
Oh
the
yeah.
word emotional for intelligence, what's getting paired with that? Yes, it's a definite no, but what's getting paired with that is softness
Oh yes.
rather than coming from a position of strength. So I'd love for you to talk to that.
Oh boy. Yeah, great question. And again, I look at it from, even if we just look at this from just a basic scientific standpoint, right? So let's look at just the measurement. If I'm measuring your brain activity, that radiates about an inch outside of your skull. If I'm measuring your heart activity, we're 3 feet out. Where do you think, again, just from a scientific perspective, where do you think the most energy is?
Right.
Here. Well, obviously it's here.
Right.
So why wouldn't you be willing to at least explore that and your own, again, magnificence, your own greatness?
So you're asking them to look at as an additional tool. Additional way to gather information to be able to act on.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it puts you in that very expansive state. And one of the things I do, and again, Lord, we could probably have a 4-hour show talking about the horses. One of the exercises I do with the horses when leaders come is trying on also all those different kind of positions or leadership styles. A lot of times, again, if you are the CEO, you are expected to be the visionary. And so maybe you're not a visionary leader. Maybe you're a supportive leader. Maybe you're a driving leader. And so you get to try on all those different positions with the horses. So I have you as the visionary. I have you as the supportive. I have you as the driving. Find your own genius zone. Again, this is that you've
Right.
got to know you first before get your own oxygen mask on before you can go help others.
Right.
And so
Where's your
figure
zone
out,
of genius?
yeah, what is it that makes you tick? Great. Then how do we build a system around you and around your organization, around your company that again unlocks that potential, not only within you, but within everyone else. So that as an organization, again, you're much more expansive.
Right. And we're going to take another quick commercial break.
Hello, join me, Stacy Bullock, host of Tools for Everyday Living on E360's Positive Vibrations channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV.
We left off with you sharing that emotional intelligence heart math allows leaders to be more expansive. And by that, I would also guess more inclusive because you're ignoring that wrapper that you talked about earlier, right?
Exactly. Right.
And don't let me explain your stuff. So please.
Well, no, that's a great summary, because yes, when you again think of the left side, right side of the grid that we talked about early, where do you think judgment falls?
Right.
That's a
Right.
left side of the grid quality.
Right.
If I'm in judgment, I'm not necessarily then choosing right to a more expansive state, a more heart quality based state. I'm in that brain based state.
Right.
And so again, one of the gifts that the horses offer is that, they are fully operating and they don't obviously have the same brain capacity that you and I do.
Right.
So our brains are kind of the curse and the blessing. It's
Mhm.
learning how do we evolve as humans to navigate the best of both.
Right. Right.
But
And
I think when we're stuck in that brain state, that's where we get stuck in the old loops of judgment, of fear, of inadequacy. Think of how many times leaders get promoted and they're probably running some, not always, obviously, but sometimes they're running a tape of inadequacy.
correct.
Right?
Correct.
That's a left side of the grid quality. If I'm not feeling adequate as a leader, how am I ever going to be able to unlock your potential to your fullest?
Right. You can't grow more leaders
Right.
if you're and I think one of the revelations I had when you were talking about the left side, and maybe it's just my own personal revelation and everybody else knew about it, is that let's be honest, is that not only does it prohibit you from being expansive, but you get locked and trapped in those emotions and those feelings, and no wonder you can't expand because that those left experiences become the reality.
Right.
And
That old
you need to learn anything else.
right. The old tape, the old wiring is playing.
Right.
And so this is really about, again, and all the brain guys, the Joe Dispenza and all of these guys that talk about being able to literally rewire the brain. A lot of that comes from that. It's the emotional response first. We've got to rewire the emotions and create a different response so that we can rewire the brain.
That is so beautiful. So where can everyone find you if there's a corporation that wants you to harness some of these things that you're teaching, or if someone wants to work with you personally, how do they connect with you?
Yes, probably the easiest place is the website, which is wholeheartranch.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I will completely own that. I'm not as great on social media, probably as I should be. I would rather be hanging out with my horses. But the website's probably the primarily, and either call me or shoot me a quick email, and I would love to schedule a time and have a conversation. And the great thing about Heart Math is it can be done both in person, online. So, and I do work both ways for that reason, just because, I'm a woman on a mission to help, change the heart of humanity.
Oh, I love that. A mission to change the heart of humanity. I want to thank you so much for being here today. Thank all our
Thank you,
guests.
Kim. I just, like I say, I so appreciate you, getting to know you even more. I love your heart and who you are, what you've
Don't
done,
tell
what you
anybody I have one.
stand for. Yeah, okay, I know. It's like on the down low, but anyway, I appreciate you being willing, as a woman leader to help other women leaders and help, again, you too. You want to change the world. So I'm right there with you, girl.
All right, beautiful. Until next, thank you very much for coming. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Leadership Beyond Burnout. Tune in to us next Thursday at 5 p.m. We'll be right here live.